Okay, can you hear me? Well, good afternoon, or buenas tardes. I wanted to take a little different tact. I am not President Rosenberg. If he were here, he would be very positive about how FIU is committed to being an engaged university, a partner with Miami-Dade College, providing access to affordable education, to be in an urban solutions center. But as I was thinking last night about what I might say, I started to think about 50 years, a long time, almost incomprehensible time frame. So I wanted to put it into a little bit of a personal context. My family happened to come to Florida 150 years ago. So I'm going to give you 3 50-year scenarios and then a 50-year plan scenario. They were the first people who came in when we were moving the Indians from the Ridge to Oklahoma. I just learned this recently. I didn't know that. They came to the United States in 1565, and they found their way to New Orleans and to Florida around 1840. 1840 was before the women's vote movement even started, okay? And it was another 50 years before women actually got the right to vote. Now, 100 years ago, my father was born. My grandparents got married, and my mother's parents got married, and they took a train, because that was how you went, to Washington, D.C., on their honeymoon. And I see Union Station still today, a wonderful monument to rail transportation. I was born, I'll admit it, in 1945, so I'm the beginning baby boomer. But 50 years ago, I graduated from high school. I graduated from Lakeland High School, segregated high school. It was well after Brown versus Board of Education, where the United States Supreme Court said that was not legal. We weren't implementing it, but in Miami-Dade County was one of the counties where they had the best implementation because they had envisioned enlightened leadership trying to work through their plan. Didn't happen so well everywhere. But the Civil Rights Act had not been passed, and there were a lot of things that really hadn't yet happened. Today, including that was the year FIU hadn't even been authorized. So fast forward today, FIU is approaching its 50th anniversary. Whereas when I graduated from high school and Florida had 6 million people, we now have 20 million people. We're projecting another 3 million people just down here. My high school was a top 10 high school. We played the top 10 high schools in Florida. We played Miami Edison Senior High School. We played Miami Senior High School. It was an all-white high school. Del Corey, who later married Bob Graham, went to that high school. And now it's a 95% Haitian high school, which they're really struggling, and they just did a turnaround from an F school to an A school with a lot of help. But they still have a 49% graduation rate. So what happens to the other 51%? Now, here we get to where we are now, 50 years ahead of time. What do we want to envision this community to be? We're involved in an organization called CEOs for Cities. CEOs for Cities is really incredibly innovative organization. It tries to highlight and celebrate local innovation, local creativity, and they began to look at, well, what is it that makes a city successful? What are city metrics? What might they look like? Well, one of the things that makes a city successful is a sound, good, reliable educational system, an effective transportation system, and prospects for jobs. So should not we actually try to focus on those things that are going to make us successful in the 21st century, including education? Now, we can all talk about our own institutions. We have brag points for days and days and days, and I hope you'll either follow us or go to our websites or invite us to come talk to you about all the things we're doing. But what about the community? Now, CEOs for Cities has a project. They've done it 2 years now. It's called City Vitals. It measures the top 51 cities by population. We are 8th by population. Now, we don't go all the way up the Treasure Coast, but the metropolitan area captures Pompano, Broward, Dade, up through Pompano. We are 8th in population. We're number 1 in small business and entrepreneurship. That should be no surprise. We're 51 in terms of community involvement, measured in volunteerism. And where are we in this other vital measure of educational attainment, which they measure as college attainment? We are 37. So FIU can be great, Miami-Dade College can be great, as well as University of Miami, Nova Southeastern, Florida Memorial, and all the rest, but we still have a gap. And how do we address that gap? And who is going to care about that gap? Who's going to care about all of the people here who are not getting an education? Okay? And how do we help people get that education and get through and complete? So is that a future we want? Are we content to have 49% graduating from Miami-Edison Senior High School? We are the leading Hispanic serving universities. Miami-Dade College is the leading Hispanic service community college. Miami-Dade College, they offer 4-year degrees as well in the nation, but our graduation rate is the leading for Hispanic serving universities in the country, but not nearly where it needs to be. And we're striving to improve that. But part of this exercise should be you to provide your vision. What would you like to see the community in terms of education 50 years from now? Now, I took a little break and I went and became a corporate vice president, and they use planning processes. And they vision 5 years out. Stretch goals, 5 years out, where would you like the company to be? Where do we need to be in 4 years to get to the 5th year, so forth and so on. So the argument, where do we need to be this year? What do we need to do this year so that 50 years from now we can achieve our vision, our collective and community vision? And it really takes all of us. It can't be just the institution or the administrators. It can't be just the elected officials who volunteer to step up to the plate and try to help lead the charge. It's going to take all of us articulating a vision that we want something more and something better. I'll leave on a final note. About 22 years ago, I happened to work in the Speaker's office in Tallahassee. The Speaker is here in the room today. We focused on several access points at that time. Those access points were the pre-K, pre-juvenile delinquent, and premature births. Well, those babies would be 22 today. Those preschoolers would be 27 today. And those 13-year-olds would be 35 years old today. And those individuals are in our community and living among us. So we can say it doesn't matter and we'll let the future take care of itself, but all those kids, and I'm fresh about Miami-Edison because I had the privilege and opportunity to be principal for a day there, and so I got a first-hand experience, and I would encourage you to volunteer for that and see for yourself, make up your own mind. But what happens to those kids? They are going to be part of our community. So what are we going to do about it? And what kind of vision do we want to have for ourselves in 50 years?